everyone. Welcome back to A Community for All of Us. I am your host, Derek, with my beautiful co host, Nikki.
Hello.
Nikki has put this together tonight for us, and we have a very special guest, a really good friend of ours, someone that we've known a long time. That when we were first getting our book stuff done, he let us come to his store and free comic book day. And it's a guy we talk about all the time. If you ever watched the show, and this is Richard from Richard's Thomas and Collectibles. Hey, Richard, how are you doing today,
Doing
my
great, guys.
friend?
Good to talk to you guys again.
Yeah, I'm very excited because Nikki came to me. She says, "Look, I've been working together, get guests together, and everybody knows I'm just the monkey behind the camera. Nikki's the brains of everything that goes on with the show and everything. So I'm gonna let Nikki take it over and share some things about how we know Richard, where we met Richard, and stuff like that. So go ahead, monkey.
We've actually known Richard for a really long time. He's one of the first people we met in the comic book industry. We were invited to go see a store. We've been going and seeing, different stores across the Carolinas. And he is so friendly. And if you haven't been to his store, it's in Greenville, South Carolina, off Lawrence Road. And he is open. I think you're open Tuesday. Are you open 5 days a week, 6 days a
I'm
week?
open 7 days a week, 11 to
Really?
7.
Okay.
Yeah, Monday through Saturday it's 11 to 7, and on Sunday it's 2 to 6.
Well, there you go. You can't miss him. And he is very welcoming, and his store is huge and has all kinds of toys and comics. I would
Yep,
agree that it is equal. There's not one overpowering the other.
good.
So Jerry, did you have questions that you want to start with?
Yeah, uh, not only does he have toys, comics, but he also has I think one of the biggest pop collections I have ever seen anywhere. But thank you so much, Richard, for being with us tonight. I hope you've been doing well. Hope the weather and everything's been going well for you.
Yeah, been doing well. I appreciate y'all inviting me.
Thank you. I love the little cat picture.
Yeah,
And we're
I'm
all
shy.
cat lovers.
Yep.
Hey, trust me. If Nikki didn't make me, I'll do it. Like, see if I can actually. Nikki told me, I was like, I would just be like this, and Nikki was like, no, no. If I'm gonna show my face, you gotta show yours. So yeah,
If you want to see me in
uh,
person, come on to the store. That'd be fine.
exactly. Yes, and you should. If you're ever in the area. Now, there's a show you were telling us about this weekend, because our topic tonight is talking about comics, toys, now and the future. But now you're going to be at a show this weekend, correct?
Yes, that'll be at It's one called Retro Toy Con. It's been going on for several years. It's here in Greenville. It's at the Embassy Suites. It's hosted by a shop, uh, the toy shop, Toy Federation here in town, or in Greer, I guess. It is a humongous show as far as vintage figures, stuff I've never seen before. There typically will be one or two comic vendors. It's not heavy on comics. It's definitely heavy on figures.
I didn't even know this was like literally in our back door. So if I can work it out with Nikki, I'm going to see if we can make it down there at least a day or
Oh,
so. But the reason why I wanted you on the show is that you do own your own comic store, toy store, and collectibles. The first thing I think audience would like to know is that how did you get into comics itself before being an owner of a store? How did you become? Were you ever a comic collector, toy collector? What was it that gravitated to this?
well, to be honest, I've been collecting comics since I can remember. Years. I used to, as a little kid, I would go through, ride my bike around, go by nearby ditches and pull out bottles, clean them up, and return them to the stores for the deposit and use that money to buy comics. But yeah, I've been collecting comics for as long as I can remember.
Wow. Comic books, I'm the same way. Comic books has been a part of my life as long as I can remember. What was the comic book that for you, when you got it for the first time? Like, is there, because for me, I started off with Superman, and then I was introduced to Marvel, and the story goes on. What comic book was like, can you remember the first comic book you actually got?
I don't remember the first one, but I probably started out with like Archie's and then went to Richie Rich and Little Lot and that kind of such, and then moved into DC with the Batman and the Superman. Jimmy Olsen turning into everything he could think of. Lois Lane trying to marry him in every 5 seconds, and then eventually I hit Marvel and started reading. I guess my favorite has always been Spider Man, but the Avengers and all those books back then. Marvel was when I really, really became a reader, I believe.
Yes, Marvel for me and Spider-Man, that's something that you and I have a common interest. Those who don't know, one of the artworks I've shown up a couple years back was a comic strip that Richard had given to us, which was a Spider-Man comic strip that has Mary Jane and Peter Parker. Um, when you got into reading comic books, what made you go from being a fan to wanting to that then become a store owner?
That's kind of an odd process, I guess. I collected comics for a long time, so I was a fan for much longer. Well, for most of the time, I was a fan. And I worked at a comic book shop here in town called New Dimensions. I worked there for several years, just helping out whenever I could, or they would let me, or whatever. And I knew the owners real well.
Hmm.
And then my job was where I worked in IT at a company in town. Was going to go through a layoff or merger, and I had found out early on that I was not going to survive that, and decided, I'm tired of all these companies that won't tell you what's going on, or even if they're doing good, they might be sold, or being bad, they might be sold. Who knows? So at that time, I made one of the owners an offer for the store, and he accepted. And that happened in like 2005 is when I started taking over the store, and I've been doing it ever since. So I've passed. I'm over 20 years now.
Yes, you are. I mean, the store's been around, um, wow, 20 years. It goes by fast.
It does. It does.
It does. Uh, being a comic book store owner, you got to see, and especially from being a fan to being a collector. And you have a vast collection. You were telling us that you also have the artwork of some of the artworks that you have gotten over the years. You have them where that people can see and look at.
Right.
Uh, and you've got to meet a lot of different artists and creators. Uh, what has been your biggest enjoyment as being now an owner, been in it, owning for 20 years? What's been your biggest enjoyment about the overall picture?
Well, early on, I had gone to San Diego Comic Con before I did the store, before I bought the store. I think I started going in San Diego Comic Con in 1992. And when I owned the store, although the passes back then to buy were very cheap, it was like 40 bucks for the entire show, and it was no problem getting them back then. Today, the passes are like $400, and you have to go through a lottery system. But during the time that I had the store, I had access to free passes for the most of the time, for just me mainly, to go to the show as a retailer. And I took advantage of that. I went through San Diego Comic Con, like I said, I started in '92 and went every year through till 2016. And that was my
Wow.
favorite time because I got to meet lots of creators. Being a retailer gave me some exclusive access sometimes.
That's pretty cool. That's actually really neat. I did not know that you had done it that long going. Now seeing a show like that, I mean that, and it's grown and having your store for 20 years. So you kind of seen the ups and the downs.
Oh,
W-
yeah.
So one thing that a lot of people ask or are curious about is that, with all these movies that we have now, which you and I've talked about this, um, we never thought we'd ever see an Avengers movie.
Right.
You know, all those characters being put together. Seeing things on the big screen, seeing comic books now coming to life. Did you ever really think that could have been something that would have been possible like we have today?
Never. I would have never. Not only today are they doing movies with one major character, they have managed to bring in 20 or 30 characters. I would have never believed it. They look mostly like the comic book characters that we read and have the powers. And now with special effects, you can do anything. So yes,
Hey,
it's really been a treat to see these books that I've enjoyed for years actually to come to life for Marvel and DC.
yes. Uh, I'm a huge Batman fan, and doing a Batman movie is not that hard. I mean, it's hard, but it's not like the special effects and everything. So when I got to see, Michael Keaton as Batman, and I watched Adam West when I was a kid and loved Batman from that. And you had Christopher Reeves as Superman, and you could see that happening. But the caliber that we have with Spider-Man, you and I both love Spider-Man, and
Right.
seeing Tobey Maguire becoming Spider-Man, it
Well,
was like, I can't believe this is happening. Doctor Octopus, Green Goblin. Um, as an owner, though, has that gravitated with bringing more readers into your store, making it where this has been out there and everybody gets to see it? Does that gravitate to people coming to the
sometimes,
store?
sometimes it does. Like for examples, when Walking Dead started as a TV series, it brought in a lot of people. Um, when we had that the Dark Knight film that had that brief preview of Watchmen, I
Yes.
sold a zillion Watchmen trades. Now, sadly, the reality is, once that Watchmen movie came out, um, I think everybody was surprised how realistic that was going to be, and I sell like maybe one Watchmen trade every 2 or 3 months after that. I don't think
Oh.
people were as excited about the movie when they finally saw it, but for the major ones like the Avengers and such, um, I don't see as much of an uptick. A few things may sell extra because of it. Now, currently, with all the news about Robert Downey Jr. being Doom coming up, I am selling some Doom storylines now that I didn't really sell before, and some of the comic series, the One World Under Doom series has been doing very well. So that's happened a little bit more, but typically the movies and TVs shows might give me a brief bump, but not a
Hmm.
lot. But not a
Not a lot.
lot.
And I look at that and I go, cause there's so many stories that are out there in comic books. I used to tell people all the time, just tell me a little bit about you, and I can probably find a comic book or a story that you will you'll gravitate to. And a friend of ours took us up on that offer, which was Nikki Kimmelberger, and she's like, "There's no way I'll ever get into comic books. I'm not going to do it. That's not me." And took her to see the Thor movie, and my God, has she become like this huge Thor fan.
Okay.
And so I kind of like I look at that and I was like, as a store owner, I wonder if that is something that you get to see a little bit more of.
Occasionally,
So
typically it's just like an individual item, like the upcoming Supergirl appearance that was in Superman. I've been selling a lot more trades of the Supergirl World of Tomorrow because that's what the new that her movie is going to be based a lot on. Now,
okay.
how well that'll go after the movie, hard to know. But
Um and seeing that in the comic books now, you and I were around when Marvel went bankrupt and was going through bankruptcy. And to be amazed that now Disney owns that property, and it's Marvel characters such as Moon Knight,
right,
Blade characters, these obscure characters that no one knew about, are now
yeah,
starting to become
Guardians of the
familiar.
Galaxy. Yeah, yeah. Who had heard of Guardians of the Galaxy before that movie came out? Nobody, even
Nobody.
regular.
I know,
No, it's,
right?
yeah. I'm glad Disney owns it all. I wish they owned everything. I wish they owned the whole Spider-Man universe, but they don't. Sony still kept that. They did eventually give up FF and the X-Men, but they've retained Spider-Man. Although they've been very cooperative with Disney and let him be in the characters in the movies, which has been good.
Yes, which I seeing Civil War and Spider-Man showed up. I was like,
Oh,
I couldn't believe that happened, and that
nobody.
was amazing.
And it worked
Because
out well for Sony because Sony had some Spider-Man films that were good, but they weren't great. And now working with the Marvel Universe, they're making a lot more money, which is good for them too.
yeah, I saw that they got Miles Morales is coming back out with Into the Spider-Verse. Finally
Well,
going to get the second part of that, which
yeah,
for me being Spider-Man 2099, Peter David,
yep,
writing Spider-Man 2099, and the Incredible Hulk. I loved him as a writer and the stories that he told with the Incredible Hulk. Seeing Spider-Man 2099, I never thought I would ever see him ever, cartoon wise or anything, and
right.
seeing that, it's been amazing.
Oh no, and I think we're going to see so much stuff coming up with this Doom stuff. We're going to be seeing characters that you never would have thought you'd ever seen. I believe.
Mm, I'm hoping so. Um, Before we go any further, was there any question that you had, Nikki?
Well, with the comics, I know I've heard from you and I've heard from some other people that, we just discussed that sometimes the viewability translates from the movies into people going to the stores to pick up comics. And we talked about a couple, but has there been, of all the movies and shows that have come out, has there been a comic that has been the most? Would you say The Walking Dead is the most transferable from the movies, television show into actual readership, or is there another comic that
No,
has
Walking
seen more
Dead.
of a
Walking Dead was probably it. Now it's kind of dried up recently because there's not a whole lot going on, and the newness is obviously worn down. I still sell some trades occasionally, but nothing like I did before, and with a comic book series. Um, yeah, but that was probably the biggest one. Now, Invincible, when it came out as the animated thing, I definitely sold a lot of Invincible omnibuses. Everybody wanted to read the story, and that should continue as long as the series is going.
Yeah, and I think they said with that one that they've now got it narrowed down to 7 seasons, so that's good. Plus, you got new stuff like Battle Beast, and I think you were telling me that Capes is coming out
Yep,
tomorrow.
tape is starting out tomorrow. Number one's coming out for that. We'll be interested to see how that goes, and it's obviously part of the Invincible universe, so we'll see where it goes.
Now, speaking of comic books, now we were talking. We take it for granted, but when do comic books come out? Generally, do they come out monthly? Do you have new stuff weekly? Do you have new stuff daily? How does that work for people that don't know?
Majority of the books do come out monthly. Occasionally, you'll get a weekly book that's a small series or whatever, but generally they're monthly, and new the new releases are usually on Wednesday.
Okay, so every Wednesday is kind of like something new is going to be out. Now, we were talking about Marvel years ago dealing with bankruptcy, and something that I wanted you on for the show tonight when Nikki told me was I want to kind of pick your brain about as collectors, as people that know the business. Diamond has filed for bankruptcy. It's been going through bankruptcy right now. How has that affected you as a store? How do you get your product now? Because Diamond was essentially like, I hate to say it, but in a way, a monopoly over distribution and how things are going to to different stores. How does that work now?
They indeed were monopoly, and I've had people tell me different reasons they didn't like them being a monopoly. But for me, early on, and for most of the years of my store, it was nice just to have to go to one place to get my books. Now, when COVID hit, the world changed for comics.
Okay,
Uh, Diamond Comics had published out that they were not able to pay all their publishers 100% every, whatever their payments were. They were going to have to make some kind of a schedule. And apparently, DC and Marvel didn't agree with that, I guess. DC moved out to new distributors, and Marvel did too. And when they did, I went ahead and went with them. So I set up with those new publisher distributors early on. So the Diamond bankruptcy, to be honest, hasn't really affected me. I've
okay,
been ordering mainly from the Lunar and Penguin Random House for most of the comics as it has. The main thing I was getting through Diamond back in the day were figures, and that slowed down a
okay.
little bit now. But I don't know if it's slowed down 100% due to the bankruptcy or the tariff issues that the government's doing and whichever else. So hard to know.
Well, one thing I can say on the toy side of it is that Diamond uh, did lay off its whole toy side of everything. So people that I got to talk to and know are no longer making the toys for Diamond. So that whole department was liquidated essentially.
It was, and that's
Um,
the select figures were very good sellers and very good products. So I hope
yeah,
somebody
I
picked.
know. I still have the Red Hawk from your store,
Yeah.
which is one of my favorite figures. Um, I hope they do because there's a lot of great material, a lot of great things that they were doing, and they were doing characters that, uh, like the Red Hulk or other characters that you wouldn't have gotten unless there's a movie or a cartoon. Diamond was actually producing
Right.
uh,
Never-
figures.
Yeah, the Diamond Select license, definitely affect. It was a shame to see it go. I still have a bunch of them. I've always invested heavily in those. But yeah, I wish new ones were still coming. McFarlane took over the DC figures for the most part, so that's been going fine for that part of it. And then the Legends figures still come out, but yeah, the select ones were a loss. That was probably one of the biggest things that with the Diamond bankruptcy that did really occur that I hated.
Same, because I like the product that they were producing and making, and they've held up. I mean, I've had this guy for years now, and they still hold up
Right.
today, better than some of the toys that I could go on a whole nother tangent on. But dealing with Diamond becoming a bankruptcy and stuff, um, and it not affecting you that much, do you see that Diamond was too powerful over retail part of it? What do you think was the cause that it fell apart like it did?
Well, part of the reason that at least the catalyst was COVID. Um,
Okay,
Part of it may have been the way they were running. My understanding, even though it didn't really affect me that way, they supported quite a few comic shops by giving them product or giving them terms for products. And I only from what I've heard, I don't know anything for numbers for fact, but apparently some of those shops hadn't been able to pay Diamond back. So there was money that Diamond was losing because of that. And then when COVID hit and they really had to, California was closed for a few weeks, literal. Greenville, they closed my shop for like a week and a half, which wasn't dramatic. It was definitely an effect. I could still had old stuff in the store to get, but I couldn't open up much. I had to do, I had to take stuff out to them. People, if they came up to the car to buy stuff, I couldn't really let people in the store. So with the COVID issues, but that didn't last as long for me as it did some other places. So but that was the
that
catalyst, I believe, that started all of this was COVID. Sadly.
okay, that was the other thing I was gonna ask too. It's like COVID, how did that affect your store? But you said it was kinda closed for a week,
Yep.
and then people, because if it's coming out weekly, how's that affect would that affect you as a whole? Give me a
Right.
second, I
And
can't
that was the thing. When COVID hit, Diamond itself had issues with closing down and all that. And when DC moved to Lunar and Marvel went to Penguin, for whatever reason, those distributors could still, because product was still being made, and Lunar and PRH were still able to ship. Because even though the store was closed down, UPS still could make deliveries. I just couldn't have people in the store as much. I do like like a drive-through service. They could come up and pick up books, I guess, if they wanted to do that. But that was only, like I say, for me, only like a week or two.
okay. Now, as the store as it's going on and you've been in the business, so to speak, have you ever had this moment where you had this start like this, like you got to thought, like for me, I got to meet Eric Larson a long time ago. And for me, I was like, oh my God, it was amazing. Has there ever been a character or artist or a writer over the years that you've either had in your store or um you've always wanted to meet? Is there someone that stands out to you?
Well, not literally in the store, but yes. And that started when I went to Comic Con, San Diego Comic Con. Getting to meet Stan Lee or John Romita Sr.
Oh
Some of
yeah,
these Armin Infantino, some of these guys. That was the. I'm sorry, majority of all these guys that I have enjoyed reading and looking at their art for the years, have sadly have passed. Um,
right.
but for like I said, since '92, I got to meet quite a few people. But yeah, Stan Lee was always fun, and like I say, John Romita was always gracious. So getting a sketch from him or getting a signature from Stan, that was always cool.
Yeah. Now, in your stuff for a while, and I got an echo. I think it's Nikki's thing. I'm
All
sorry.
right, I'll turn mine off. That's fine.
I don't know. Nikki's had a little bit of audio. She had to get a new headset. Sorry, guys. So when Nikki, when you want to ask a question, to give me a thumbs up, and I'll mute myself so that you're not echoing.
She's a
Um,
teacher. She just raise her hand.
yeah, just like be like the teacher you have. I'm sorry, baby, but the thing that gets me is that we've had the privilege of seeing some of the greatest stories and the greatest art
Yep.
that's ever came out, and we're getting to see those on the big screen. Um, has there been a story that you've seen recently as a collector or as a store owner that you've looked at and you've seen that talent or you've seen that story and you're like, what, I wish they would make that a story. Is there anything like that that you see currently?
I don't. Nothing comes to mind, little specifically, but with today's technology and what they've already done, they can
Hmm.
do anything. I'd like to see the original Secret Wars come out with Beyonder and the black suit showing up and all of this. I don't know if we've already passed where we can do that or not, but the technology certainly exists. The last Fantastic Four movie that actually had a real Galactus. If they can do Galactus, they can do pretty much whatever they want to do.
Yeah, the Galactus thing that was amazing to me. I at first, you as a comic book reader, you see it and you're like, it's not campy. But
Right.
then you start thinking about it and you're going, oh God, if that's on the big screen, is that going to be campy? Is that going to look, you know, really
I was worried
bad?
about it. I was worried about FF and having a female surfer just because I'm more original. I wanted to see the original surfer, but when they did the story with it, it made much more sense having the female surfer. So Johnny Storm had a love interest and whichever else, and it all flowed. It flowed real well. Um,
Hmm.
none of these movies are perfect. You can find fault in all of them, but they were it was very entertaining, and I really enjoyed it.
I'm not even a Fantastic Four fan, and I loved the way the thing looked. He looked like that Jack Kirby.
Right?
Uh, you know, Getting to see Jack Kirby, at least the rendering of Jack Kirby and Stan Lee in the same room together, coming up with an idea for working on a comic book in the office, I thought was amazing.
Yep.
Um, I thought Disney did a really good job, in my opinion, as a comic fan. Seeing the Fantastic Four, I was like, that's what we want. That hits the nail on the head.
Right.
Um, I agree. Nikki's a big Silver Surfer fan. She was not too happy with it being the female, but I was like, hey, that actually happened in the Earth X
It did.
universe. That Alex Ross was a part of. I was like, technically, that did happen. You know, um, so it wasn't like they took something and completely changed it completely. Um, but I think everybody would love to have seen, Nolan Ryan being the Silver Surfer, but I thought they did really well with what they had.
No, I like I said, I was hesitant about some of the changes they made within the film, but
Mhm.
it all worked, and it was good to see him on the screen. I hope we see an FF2. Um,
I I do too.
we'll see. We'll see.
Because for me, that's my next thing going to being, in in this a lot discussion has been popped up a lot lately is has superhero movies have they reached their peak? Are they done? Do you think that um comic books in general or because a lot of people say I always like Egon Spengler from the Ghostbusters says print is dead. Do
All
you
right.
ever see this genre like going away? Because like I was telling you, Netflix is looking at purchasing Warner Brothers right now. Uh, you got the Absolute Universe has been a huge success for them. James Gunn's Superman came out, which I thought was really well done. But do you see that we're coming to the end of the line? Do you see that we're not going to have comic books anymore? Do you think that's is still something that's going to keep going on?
Well, obviously, I think there'll be an end to comics one day, but I don't think there's going to be an end in comics for our lifetimes by far. It's still one of the few mediums that you can get that printed book and take it to the creator and get it signed and have a really good chance of actually meeting those guys that worked on the books. They're not
Mhm.
too expensive yet. They keep pricing themselves up higher and higher, so it does get harder to afford them. Even my customers, they'll have to, they got to limit themselves. They can't buy every book like you could have maybe when they were 12 cents. But yeah, comic books are still around, and I don't see them going away anytime soon.
Now, one thing that like to have your opinion on is that manga is
Huh?
a huge success. And it's a forum that's in print.
Right?
And roughly you can get one of those books, even though they're black and white and they're on newspaper, which is what you and I grew up with
And you have to
newsprint,
read them
not the
backwards.
what's that now?
And you have to read them backwards.
Yes, you do. Do you see maybe the companies like Marvel, DC, maybe going that direction with comic books where they maybe not focus on a monthly book, but a graphic novel based thing? Do you see that? How does graphic novels? What I'm trying to ask is how does graphic novels and comic books compare? Because the conversation that I had with someone one time was saying comic books are now like almost $5 a pop, but I can get a whole manga book for $10, and I got 300 pages there, and I only get 32 here. Do you see the maybe the that switching over to that direction? How
You know,
does graphic novels and comics work in the store?
comics and trades. I guess the major difference is: are you patient? And you wait for
Okay.
an 6 issue run to come out and grab the trade, or you need to read it as it comes out. Now, trades typically work for the guys that didn't collect it when it came out as a comic book format, or missed the first few issues. Then they might wait for the trade that might be coming out immediately, or might already be out if it's an older series. But most of the part, people still want to get that weekly fix, monthly fix of that series because they don't want to wait 6 months to collect it in trade.
And that's the other thing too is that do you ever see like I got a 6 issue miniseries and it does take 6 months for it to come out. Um Back in the day there was things that used to happen which was delays. Does that kill a series if it's coming out? Like if you're planning to have that thing come out once a month and you've got a reader that has said, and that's the other question I'm going to ask in a minute is how do people get their comic books to make sure they get them monthly? Um, if there's a delay, does that kill the series?
Kind of depends on the book and how big the delay is. Like currently, right now, the Batman series is redoing the Hush 2. Should have been a lot further along than it is. It should have
Yeah.
been the new Batman #1 that came out recently, within a few months ago or whatever, was supposed to have come out, I guess, pretty much after the Hush storyline.
Yep.
But a certain artist that is a very nice guy, very talented, is also very busy and doesn't know how to say the word no. And
Hmm.
Jim Lee, by the way, is the guy I'm talking about. Um,
Yep.
it's just taking him time. It's very. I like Jim Lee, and I think his art is amazing. But with
I
his
do too.
position, DC Comics, and all the conventions he goes to, and people drawing on him from back and forth to do different things, I honestly think he just needs to really just do a cover every now and then. I don't think he has the time to work on a series and keep it on time. I just don't.
And I have to agree. And I love Jim Lee. I felt he made me fall in love with the X-Men. Um, because of his art style and
Right.
a lot of people don't know this, but he also drew the Punisher, which I actually read the Punisher and then I read followed him when he went to the X-Men and fell in love with the X-Men. But yeah, I'm a Batman fan. I've been waiting now for 2 months for the series to come to an end. But for
Right.
me, his art is worth the wait because the detail that goes into every line that he does.
And it is.
Um,
But I have seen a little bit of a slowdown because of that, even the little bit of delay we're having with his book, because it's now getting I want to say out of order, or the storylines are not meshing up the way they would have. So, and they don't want to let something slip that's in the new Batman series from the Hush 2. So it's difficult. But he's like you said, he's worth it. But there have been other series and other creators that have done been late on books that the storyline has completely died on the vine just because they were so late.
Like Kevin Smith's cat, Black Cat.
Good
Uh,
example. Yes. That's some of the difference between trades and like you mentioned, but comics are for the average $4 to $5 a piece, and a
mhm,
trade's average price is like $20, depending upon the. Typically, there's 6 issues, so typically the trade is a little cheaper to buy than the comics, but
okay,
you have to wait 6 months.
right. And you know, you can pretty much, if you're not careful, everybody is putting things up online, and that's my next question. How does it affect your store as a owner with these people doing these YouTube channels and they're putting the book out there for you to see without paying for it? You know, does that affect your store in the long run by people doing that? Do you see people kind of like backing off on buying current issues because they've already been told the story?
No, not really. It's just like you can get a lot of comics. The digital services have kind of way slowed down from what they once tried to be. But once
Hmm.
again, this is the only medium really that's out there now that you can take and go to the creator and get him to sign it. You can buy movie CDs all the time, but try to get these musicians or buy a DVD, try to find all the actors that sign these books, those things or whatever. But comic books, with all the conventions going around, you still have a pretty good chance of going to a show and meeting the creator and getting him to sign something. So the comic books will still exist because of that, and even the trades and hardcovers because of that also. But yeah, they're comics aren't going away, and and having them digital or being spoiled on YouTube video, people still want that physical copy.
That
So
that Now, do you have people that now how do people get comic books going to your store? How does that work as a store owner? How do you I guess what I'm trying to say is how can you gauge on what somebody's wanting? Because you got so many books out there. Is there a way that you have a store set up where people can, I guess, order, pre-order? How does that work as a store?
well, when we had Diamond, it was easier to do that part because the Diamond Comic Suite had a setup where I could do subscriptions through that, and people could
Okay.
sign up for series or individual special order books or whichever. When Diamond left back during the COVID part, things changed, and now it's even had to change more so with Diamond going under bankruptcy, where now Comic Suite no longer functions like it did. So my store went to a site out there called League of Comic Geeks that does a
Okay.
subscription service as far as you can a customer can sign up for an account in League of Comic Geeks. They can tag it to their local store and create a pull list that I get to see. And then I order through that every month when I go, or every week really, to do orders through Lunar or Penguin Random House. I can see the collected totals. Now that does require the subscriber to keep doing that, and you have to do it every week or so to check it out, and you got to go kind of in advance because I still order books 2 months or so in advance. So these
Okay.
customers have to go through and do that, and majority of them are. There's a few stragglers that aren't as real computer literate or don't watch things as carefully as they should. But I always still, for the most part, will buy extra copies to go on the wall because not all my books are sold just to subscribers. I do have people that come in off the street and buy the comics.
Okay. So
But League of
you
Comic Geeks is working out for me for the most part.
that's good. So you have like a subscribers. Um, is that like a membership thing, or is that just something that
It is.
somebody
It's
can sign?
free. It is a free service that I provide through the Comic Geek or Comic Suite when it was there. And if you sign up for a subscription, I even do 10% or so off, and up to 20% depending upon the number of titles you get, because I can give them a discount because they're helping me with my orders.
Okay. All right. So it would be beneficial if someone's like, "Hey, I want to get this book. I really like it." And they would do a subscription that way through you. That's pretty cool. I think that's
It's
that
a,
one-on-one connection too.
it is, and I don't have a minimum. If they just want one series I'm fine with doing that because that one series may lead to other books that they like, and all of a sudden I'm getting a guy 10 or 15 series. So I don't have a minimum. Just it just depends on how many they get, how much kind of a discount they might get.
That's pretty cool. Um, because it does comic books. If people don't know, you may like. I love Batman, but there's like 15 different Batman books out there, and Nick is always like saying to me, "Do you really need to get that other Batman?" I was like, "It's Batman. I have to get that. It's Batman." And she's like, "Okay, so you got 15 Batman books. So you're not tired of reading Batman?" No, I'm not tired of reading Batman because but yeah, it does lead to that. That it's like I've always said that one little chocolate chip cookie you give somebody and then they want the whole bag. And that's me. I get one chocolate chip cookie and I want the whole thing, every bit of it, all of it will be
Yeah,
mine. It's like I would be Thanos in the Marvel universe, collect all the stones and snap my finger and I'd have all the books.
there you go.
Um, but yeah, with that, anything that you want to ask? I know me and Nick has been going back and forth on the phone since she was having echo. Was there anything I missed that you had that question that you wanted to ask? Because I'll mute myself so you can go ahead and do so. Because I know people want to hear you. They might not see us because this will also, if things work out, will be on Spotify too. Um, so I do have Nikki is still there. She's just if on Spotify, you don't ever get to see our faces, but she is there. I promise. Um, but with that, and dealing with the comic books, where do you see the future of comics going?
I don't really see a whole lot of change in them happening from where they are today. Sadly, the prices will probably increase, and we may see less series. It used to be weekly; there would be like 100 new titles that would come out every month, every week, and now I'm roughly down to 80 or so, which is still a lot of books to deal with. But I don't sell them. Nobody buys all 80 titles, so there's plenty of choice and plenty of selection. Um, I don't really see any dramatic changes. Um, New distributors, maybe if somebody else wants to try to do a monopoly again, might change up the world. But short of the price changing, I don't really see anything coming up in the near future.
Now, something that that someone had floated by with me has said that some of the publishers were looking at combining books together and have it come out as one little, like, I guess you would say it would be a giant size, like it would be an 80-page book. Do you see that possibly something that could be happening in the future with comic books where you have not all these individual issues, but maybe let's say a Justice League book and then it has in it Justice League Red, and Justice League Unlimited, and it all be one volume? Do you see that happening with comic books, or do you still see them as individual issues where they're
I still
coming
see
out?
individual issues, even though the average price now is still, like I said, $4 or $5. There are some publishers out there, distillery or whatever, that do have some $8 and $9 comics. And to be honest with you, I don't sell as many of those. And when
Okay.
DC or Marvel themselves do a holiday special, they typically hit the $10 range. And I don't sell a lot of those either. Um, so I don't expect that to really occur. Um, it just gets pricey. Now, if they can figure out how to put 3 or 4 comics together and sell them for the same price, as one a book, then
Hmm.
maybe. But
Okay.
I don't.
You don't see that being something that would be coming down the pike. Um, Now, as a owner of a store and dealing and coming through COVID, uh, has your store got kind of like back to normal after COVID now, as it was before COVID? Has it kind of like gone to the way it was, or you're still having to deal with certain mandates or certain things, or um, or orders? I mean, what I'm trying to ask is that is things gotten back normal as it was before COVID?
Well, things are back to normal as far as they were. COVID's no longer in effect. The only thing that's not normal anymore is when Diamond existed, as they did. I only had to do orders once a month, and I only had to go through
Mhm.
one location. With now having multiple distributors, I have to have multiple FOC, final order cutoff days, and I typically have
Okay.
2 or 3 of those to do a week instead of the one big one a month. So it's a little bit more work in a way, but to be honest with you, it's getting to be normal now. So yeah, as far as comics, as far as things are now, everything's back to normal. It just looks different.
That's good. That's happy to hear,
Yep.
is that that's coming back down to being more normal. Um, as a store owner, and we've talked about conventions and everything, and do you do more conventions than you used to, or are you kind of like settling down where you're staying local? Because I know with me and Nikki, when our health was good, we were going everywhere on the East Coast, um, and to all the different shows. As a store owner, do you do a lot of shows, or have you kind of like, I've done those, I'm now going to kind of slow down?
Well, I used to do a bunch, and this year and starting from this at this point on, I'm only going to try to do local shows in Greenville, large ones or small ones in the area. And it's more so that I'm old. It's just it's not quite the same. It takes a lot out of you to you got to load up, you got to drive a distance, set up, tear down. And for the further locations, I don't get a lot of benefit out of it except the sales I make literally at that show. If I go to Columbia and set up for a convention, I don't gain 10 new subscribers to my shop. They're not going to come there with me. They've got shops in Columbia. So I just had to decide to weigh on that, and just do more local ones and concentrate more on generating new subscribers here locally or being at the store and doing more things there.
That was my next question, is that, being local, because, one thing that back in the day is that there wasn't that very many different conventions, and now there's like new ones popping up all the time, and it kind of becomes overwhelming. Um, Doing more stuff at the store and generating more customers, I think that is going to help long term, and that personal connection with with a store. That's the one thing why I love comic book stores, is that, yes, they are a niche, but it's a place where you get to meet great people. You get to talk about different stories. You get to see, new readers coming in. Are you seeing, and this will be the coming to the last of the questions, but are you seeing younger readers coming back to the store? Or are you just seeing, older readers?
I don't know if I've seen much about the age. With Greenville itself, as a city, keeps increasing in size, and I get new subscribers for people that are moving in. As far as age goes, to bringing in new people, I see more of that through the card games or such like that, or a toy here and there. I may get kids come in. I don't have a
Okay.
lot of kids, a few, yes, but I don't have a large percentage of increase of kids coming into the store to buy younger reader comics. I still stock them, and there are, like I said, there are still some families that do come in, just not consistently. The families that come in that bring their kids, bring them in whenever they're able to, or wanting to, or needing to. They're not weekly or monthly by any means.
Gotcha. And so, and that was my last thing, is that, there was a thing that used to be known as Free Comic Book Day. Um, that I know that's going to probably, that's definitely just changed since Diamond's no longer here. But do you think you may do a type of incentive? Is that something that you would look at trying to do for your own store to generate new readers, um, or is that something that never really panned out so much as bringing new customers in? Uh,
Yeah, to be honest with you, Free Comic Book Day is and hopefully will continue to be a fun event. It didn't add me a lot of new regular customers. It did make awareness so people did know I'm there, but those are sporadic type customers. I typically did
mm,
really good sales on Free Comic Book Day, and had a lot of fun guests up there, including you guys, of course. And it's a good event. Now, it just generates typically a lot of sales for that specific day for the event, and then a few people may come back and forth, but there's a good, pretty good percentage of people that just drop in there for the free comics and go home, which is fine. Hopefully, every now and then that'll get somebody's attention, but that's the whole name of the game for that part. It's a marketing thing. I don't know if there will be a free comic book day for 2026 with the Diamond bankruptcy. I do know there is another company, Alliance Game or whatever, that has purchased it. Now, will they have time to do something major for free, for free comic book day next year? I don't know. Typically we used to have 50 to 60 different titles from publishers. I would
Right.
foresee DC or Diamond, I mean DC or Marvel, for sure doing a free comic book day, few books. I don't know who's gonna manage it all to see if we can't get 50 again from all the different publishers. We'll see. I don't know the answer.
Yeah,
I
that
hope
and that'll be what's that?
I hope so. I hope somebody puts it together and we can have a free comic book day similar to what we've had in the past.
Yes, I definitely do. Because for me, it was the one time I could sit there and see different books from different publishers and go, "Oh, I might be interested in reading that story,"
Right.
and stuff. Um, and getting to hang out with you has always been a
Oh,
blast in your store, which we love. But with that, like I like to end the show with when we have a guest, kind of tell us some things that you got coming up and where people can find you and share everywhere for your store, wherever anybody can see your stuff or find you. Please share that.
well, certainly come on down to the store if you're in the area. Greenville, of course. I'm right 1214 Lawrence Road. I'm open Monday through Sunday, Monday through Saturday, 11 to 7, Sunday 2 to 6. As far as events coming up, there's an event coming up next weekend here in town at the Embassy Suites, Retro Toy Con. That if you're a toy fan, oh my gosh, this is a show you ought to attend.
Mhm.
Um, if After that, there'll be Thanksgiving week, and then we've got holiday fair here in town, and I'll set up there. But that's mainly for toys, of course, for the holidays. And then come January, there'll be a couple small shows, and then of course the SC Comic Con will come up in April, I guess. So lots of stuff still going on, but come to the shop by all means.
Yes, please do check out his stuff. Check out everything that deals with Richard's Comics and Collectibles. If you We'll have all the stuff in the description down below, but also if you just type in Richard's Comics and Collectibles, Richard will pop right up on Google. Um, but with that, as coming to the close, the one thing I want to ask, as being a fan, do you still collect artwork? And if you do, what's one of your most favorite pieces that you have at the moment?
I still do like to collect artwork. Artwork is getting very pricey these days. The pages
Yes.
that I used to pick up for $50 to $100 are hitting in the $1,000 range. And they're not as many freed up from collectors or publishers or artists like they used to be. Um, so I still buy something occasionally, typically more of a comic book strip because they are still more affordable. And there's some excellent art in these comic strips, and there's strips I've never even seen before. I like collecting something new.
Right.
As my favorite strip pages or whatever, I have quite a few pages from the Amazing Spider-Man Annual 21, the wedding of Spider-Man and Mary Jane, and that's by far my favorite art that I have.
Yeah, beautiful. And if you ever get a chance to see art, you definitely should. It's beautiful. But yeah, artwork is very much going up like it used to. I remember, being able to go. Nikki could always do it. I couldn't do it, but Nikki has a lot of art from Adam Hughes that she used to sit at his table, and she's got all his old sketches. So yeah, you can't do stuff like that anymore like you used to. But um my other question too is that dealing with buying art, does everything now pretty much digital art, or do you still find comic book pages, black and white ink?
There are still pages. There are a lot less of them than there used to be. Unless you're collecting older pages, a lot of the
Mhm.
artists today are doing digital, or they're doing pencils on one page, and then they're emailing the scan or whatever to the inker, and he's doing his own page. So it's difficult to find a page that is pencils and inks. They still exist. There's still artists doing the old-fashioned method, but a lot of the new guys are going more digital because it's so much easier. And I get it; it's so much easier to correct a mistake, change something, and go that route. It's just not as easy to collect a digital page of art.
Right, because anybody can make a printout.
Yep.
So, but I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Richard, for taking your time out and doing this for us. We very much appreciate it. Very sorry that Nikki's audio was messing up,
Ah,
but thank you so much. As we're coming to close, I am going to mute myself. Nikki, you go ahead and come in and you share everything, and we'll call it end the show.
I don't know what I'm sharing, but I'll do my best. We are still putting up comic strips on our website on Wednesdays. Our website is bitterteamedia.com, spelled out exactly the way you would normally spell bitter tea media. And we don't have any shows coming up right now, but we plan on having some more guests. John Gilstrap is going to join us next Tuesday, and he's going to talk to us a lot about Marvel and DC Comics, and we are really excited about having him. We'll be putting some more stuff on my Facebook account, which is Nikki Lynn Segal Davis. You can look me up there and get more information. So we really appreciate having you tonight, Richard. Thank you for coming. It's short notice. It was lovely.
it's been a pleasure, guys. I'm glad to talk to you guys always.
Same here. And
Absolutely. Thank you, Richard.
if I can, I'm going to try and talk her into letting us come this weekend because I want to see some toys.
Well,
Yeah,
you come
spend
to
too
them.
much money.
I know, gotta go by Tony's, but that's it. Thank you so much. And with that, that is the end of the show. Now